You're listening to the Fezcast, produced on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and featuring the independent thoughts, rants and rambles of Saracens fans and special guests. If you'd like your opinion to be heard on the show, you can find the Fezcast on Facebook or Fezcast_SSA on Instagram and whatever Twitter is known as these days. But for now, enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of, it's undeniably it's going to be the Fastcast again this week, unfortunately, because we're recording this Monday evening as the news has come out that Owen Farrell is definitely off for L'escargot and La Vin Rouge in the disco tent that is Racing 92's ground. We're going to discuss that in the second half. But I'm with Matt and Duncan, and we've got lots to get through there, guys, haven't we? But we've also got two games to talk about. Plus, we've got an interview this week, and I know Matt is sort of saying, "Oh, should we hold this back?" Well, I think we do need to speak. We're going to talk to Tom Parton. I'm interviewing him to chat about all things Saracens, but obviously probably not Owen Farrell. But everything else, particularly with Exeter Chiefs coming up in the league, in our last league game for about 17 months, I think it is, isn't it, Matt?
I don't think we're playing again until 2026, are we? It's, as they say, the show must go on.
Well, indeed, yeah. And I mean, Duncan, you watched the men's game second hand, didn't you? Because you were dragged out by your partner for the evening.
It was an interesting evening because my wife had organised a charity quiz night. So I was sitting there at the quiz night, obviously 3-line whip. I couldn't go to the game. And my phone was upwards on the table while I was watching WhatsApp messages coming in from you lot and others along the lines of, "Oh, my goodness, Owen, what are you doing? Oh, this isn't going very well, is it?" And I couldn't pick up the phone to see what was going on because I would have been accused of cheating in the quiz. So, I caught up with the game. I caught up with the game today. So it's probably fresher in my mind than it is in yours.
Well, indeed. Well, I mean, first up, we're going to take it chronologically. So in part one, we're going to have a quick chat about top of the table clash for the women, Saracens women away at Gloucester-Hartbury. And a little bit of a bump back to earth, Matt, really, wasn't it? I mean, there's a lot going on and being said and everything like that. We have to bear in mind that Gloucester-Hartbury, one, are champions, and two, are undefeated this season, like Saracens going into that game. It was always going to be a hard game at Gloucester. They're a great side. And actually, I think for long periods of the game, what I saw of it, Saracens were probably the better side, just weren't quite as accurate as Gloucester-Hartbury were, Matt.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you there. I think certainly for the first half, it was a defensive masterclass from both teams, really. Like you say, both teams unbeaten going into it. Both teams also actually missing a couple of key players as well. And you did see why the two sides were top of the table. Gloucester-Hartbury just maybe a little bit more clinical in attack when they did get some opportunities. And there was quite a big swing in the penalty count over the course of the game. I mean, early on, Gloucester were conceding penalties left, right and centre, and it eventually told with a yellow card. And then it just seemed to swing the other way. And we never quite responded to that, and we never quite responded to Gloucester going down to 14 players as well. And I mean, a word for Kelsey Jones, who managed to score a hat-trick and get a red card in the same game. I don't know that's happened too many times before. But, they if anything, Gloucester got even better with 14 players, as sometimes happens. So, yep, first defeat of the season is one of those things, really.
Well, indeed. I mean, I suppose, actually, for all the talk of it, it'd be lovely to see a team go in undefeated for the good of the league. And actually, I think for the good of people's expectations, not necessarily on the pitch or in the coaching dugout, but certainly in the stands. it's good to get that dose of reality. And as I say, the league is still competitive. But at the end of the day, Saracens are still top of the PWR, Duncan.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we were messaging during the game, and I messaged to say, "Oh, is Sophie de Goody not playing?" And Matt said, "No, she's not, but she wouldn't stop these penalties being given away," which is true. But I think she's such a massive presence; it had an effect. But even without her, you and I both agreed it was brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely brutal. I mean, and all testament to the guys out there that they really are. At the top level, and that shows when players can be professional, can spend the time training and devoting their life to rugby. The standard increases pretty rapidly and pretty a long way, Matt.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I think the league is also tightening up as well. There's a lot more players distributed across the teams in the latest England squad, and with the latest England contracts from a little while ago. So yeah, it does just show what can be done when you've got more and more players able to train and condition themselves for a hell of a lot longer. Just to crowbar something in as well, I do want to say, you've got to appreciate the fight that we showed in that game right to the end as well. I mean, there was a bonus point that we could have had by the end of it, and we scored a try in the red, a long way in the red, from quite a long way back in the game. Unfortunately, couldn't convert the try that was scored to claim a bonus point. But there was a couple of comments I saw about how the girls seem to be off of it and not trying particularly hard. And I think that showed that that's a load of rubbish, to be honest. So,
the sheer brutality of the game. Anybody watching that, looking at those tackles flying in and the thumping tackles that they were, couldn't say that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. And I mean, they did, every player put their bodies on the line. Sometimes, it goes with you, sometimes it doesn't. And, all credit to Gloucester-Hartbury, who are, one, a very good side, and two, worthy champions. And, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the final at the end of the season. And I think it would be an exceptionally good final if it was that.
Hopefully it won't be a Gloucester home game again.
Well, hopefully not. I have no idea where the final's going to be yet, but I mean, there you go. That's it. Look, shall we have a break there? And I'll do my interview with Tom Parton, and poor lad as he is in a week where the news is going to be pretty well. Well, as it has been for the last month, hasn't it? It's been very much 10-centric, shall we say? And then we'll come back and discuss the game against Lyon. And also, obviously, the news about Owen Farrell that's coming out of all of the various different news outlets.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You're listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association. And I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the StoneX.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, our big interview today for the Fezcast is one of Saracens' up-and-coming rising stars, I suppose, signed last season from London Irish. Welcome to the Fezcast. Brilliant fullback, pacey, brilliant, got an eye for the try line and also the eye for the try line for others. Tom Parton joins us. How are you doing, Tom? All good?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Just finished up training here in lovely conditions. But no, it's been good, thank you.
I can imagine so. And I mean, we watched the game on the weekend, obviously, and the wind at StoneX is always complicated. So if you've got good wind on training, then hopefully that helps you for the game on Saturday. But before we talk all about that, let's talk a little bit about yourself, because I see you were born in Oxford, which is my kind of stomping ground. I lived in Abingdon for many years and live in Banbury now. But around Oxford. What was your junior club, Tom?
So I played a bit for Henley Hawks.
Right.
So yeah, I was born in Oxford, then lived a bit up in the Midlands, and then when I was young, about kind of 4 or 5, family moved down south, and we kind of have been living in Henley ever since. So yes, I played for Henley Hawks, and then went through like the oratory prep school and played a lot for them, and yeah. Love playing with my mates, yeah, for sure, when I was younger.
Well, yeah, a breeding ground around that area of good players. I know Tom Varndell's one who came through that kind of like a pathway, a player that I was involved in at coach level. But look, let's get into the real nitty gritty of it. And look, we chatted with Ollie before we came on air, and we're not going to delve into the ins and outs of what's going on at the moment. But the last few weeks have been a bit of turmoil, a bit of stuff going on outside of it. I mean, Saracens seem to be these days as much known for what goes on off the pitch as on the pitch. But I mean, how's feelings in the camp at the moment? How are everybody getting on with what's going on at the moment?
I think things are really good. I think we know that we've kind of been a little bit patchy and a little bit inconsistent with our performances. And I think it's been a little reflection on our training throughout the week. But I think, the training levels have definitely risen, and I think we're starting to get more consistent with our performances. I thought we showed a good reaction last weekend against a good Lyon team after a big Bordeaux defeat. But I think the way the boys are kind of realising now what it takes throughout the week and how you can't just kind of switch on a Saturday. I think there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes, and boys are really excited. There's a lot of stuff going on, but we're kind of heads down and enjoying each other's company, and we're thoroughly enjoying each day that we've got at the club.
And so everybody's 100% committed to what goes on the field. The headlines off of it don't really affect you. I mean, do the coaches and the management staff just quell that all down? What's going on outside, the rumours and everything that are flying about?
Yeah, I don't think we can kind of control that kind of stuff really, so there's no point really worrying about it. It's out of our control, what people want to do and what people want to write about. They've got their own jobs and their own things to do, their own agendas, and as far as we're aware, we're rugby players for Saracens, and we're kind of just intent on delivering the best performances that we can. And I think by doing that, we can't really afford to focus on things that we can't control. So that's kind of been the messages that we've been telling each other. And, I think it's kind of, we're all aware of that, and we're all just really enjoying training and being together at the minute.
Well, I suppose, and that's something that you alluded to earlier, is that the performances so far over the last sort of 5 or 6 games perhaps haven't been as at the level that the Saracens set themselves. I mean, we're in a quite an unusual position, being 6th in the league. We're used to being top 2 for most of the season, and the Bordeaux game was a bit of a humbling experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think from my point of view, look, I've been at London Irish for 6 years, and Saracens are always in that top side of the table. But I think more importantly, that they're always at the top when it matters, and that there's still a lot of rugby that needs to be played. And I think that kind of starts this week against Exeter. We're going to be looking to get a bit of revenge for how things started with us down at their place, and we're really excited about that kind of prospect. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be thereabouts come the end of the season, because I think the talent that we've got in this squad, in this room, and in the coaching staff and all the work behind the scenes, I think is really exciting. So, I think people writing us off, I think it's quite a good thing, to be honest.
Well, absolutely. I mean, does that add inspiration perhaps that you've not had in the past? Well, I mean, your first season there, but when you look at the senior players out there, and I mean, particularly for yourself, you're going to be learning from one of the very best in Alex Goode, which you can't help but learn from, can you? But has this been, do you think, an inspiration to those older heads to be in a position where perhaps they've never been or haven't been for quite some time, that they are being slightly written off, they are being criticised for performances from both their own fans and outside as well in some cases. Has that been an inspiration for them, and have they used that as a drive to bring the team along and bring the younger players like yourself along as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak on their part and how they're feeling, but I think from my side of things, I've really enjoyed learning and seeing how they operate, and the messages that they've been relaying to the younger lads. Myself, Ollie Hartley, in the backs and stuff, Rotty. Those guys has been really, really exciting, and I think their experience, and you can't really put a price on that in terms of what we're learning from them. It was a massive attraction for me coming here, learning off Goode and seeing how he operates and stuff, and being around him every day, seeing what he's like, and kind of just the little lessons that he's kind of passing on to me on the training pitch today. You can't put a price on it. So I think that it's a different challenge to what they're used to, but I think they're enjoying bringing us younger lads kind of with them, and seeing it as a real exciting opportunity for the group.
I mean, and do those players act almost now as player coaches? I mean, you certainly see it on the field. It's something we've been saying about Owen Farrell for a number of years, but then you look at other senior players that seem to have taken young players under their wing. Maro Itoje's obviously working with Hugh Tizard, for instance. You'll see, obviously, Manu Vunipola's going to be working with the likes of Sam Creed or whatever. Goode with yourself. I mean, sure, Maitland's around. He's obviously going to be imparting lots of wisdom to young wingers as well. I mean, how are they developing? Do you see that development in them?
Yeah, I think they'd all make great coaches. I think the kind of level of experience that they have, how long they've been playing the game, I think there's definitely nuances and things that us less experienced lads can learn off them. I think when you've got a guy who's played 360 odd games for the club, it's only going to be a good thing for us to kind of see what he's feeling at certain points, and I think it's really exciting for us to be learning off not only the experience that they have, but the kind of caliber and people that they are as well.
Well, absolutely. That certainly does come he's made apparent as we watch. But let's talk about games and everything. I mean, and the two big games that we know about now. We'll talk about Exeter Chiefs last up, if we may, Tom. But next up, we did say the Bordeaux game in the group stage of the Champions Cup was a bit of an eye-opener. An exceptionally good side, Bordeaux, aren't they? And, and the vagaries of the Champions Cup is that you get them again away in the last 16, which, I mean, is that being seen now as an opportunity to get a lot of things right? You sort of open the door, you've seen what they can do, plans being put in place, or is that just too far down the line now?
I think we haven't really thought too much about Bordeaux, to be honest. I don't think there's much point thinking. It's very cliche, but thinking 2-3 weeks ahead, I don't even know when we play them, to be honest. So that shows how much, we're aware. But I think obviously we went to their place and didn't put out a performance that we wanted to. And I think the one thing that this group prides itself on is its ability to learn the lessons of mistakes that we have made. And I think going back to their place and putting in a proper Saracens performance is really exciting. So it'll be a great place to play. And yeah, I'm sure the group will be looking for a bit of redemption for sure.
And of course, hopefully by then there'll be a few players returning from injury and suspension. Obviously, Maki Vunipola's got one more game to go on his suspension, but you should hope, particularly as after Exeter, you've got a long break through the Six Nations. What are the plans? I mean, are you being given a bit of time off to go and have a bit of R&R and relax and just clear before getting back? I suppose almost it's going to be like doing another pre-season, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're getting a week or so off to kind of recharge the batteries. It's been a long old slog, this block. So I think it's only right for us to kind of get a bit of time away from each other. As much as we do like being around each other every day, it'll be nice to kind of get away and boys get up to whatever they want for a week or so. But then, we're flying back into things, I think. And then, just treating it kind of, I imagine, like a mini pre-season and focusing on the things that we need to learn from this kind of block into the kind of business end of the season.
Well, and talking of the business end of the season, this weekend you got Exeter Chiefs at StoneX after, again, at the start of the season playing them with quite a few players away on World Cup duty and, going down to a pretty heavy defeat, unfortunately, down in Exeter. Now, to be fair, some of us on the Fezcast, in particular my colleague Sam, were tipping Exeter to struggle this year. And he still is tipping them to struggle despite all the evidence in front of him. One, how much of a surprise was it to see an Exeter team that very much were in transition, having lost the likes of Jack Noel and Luke Cowan-Dickey and Johnny Hill and the Simmons brothers, for them to be able to perform as well as they did. And secondly, I suppose the question is, we talked about Bordeaux and what you're looking forward to there, but that Exeter Chiefs game at the start of the season, is there, you mentioned revenge earlier on. There's obviously that's something that's been mentioned this week in training.
I'll take the first part of your question. So we're obviously really excited about putting in a real performance. I think in terms of Exeter as a team, I think for us it was no real surprise. I think the back end of the last season they were kind of playing without the likes of Jack Noel and the Simmons and and they were putting in really good performances. So from our side of things, it wasn't something that we were not expecting them to not turn it on at home. But we just didn't really kind of turn up on the day, which happens. It's rugby; it can go that kind of way. They got the bounce of the ball, and we didn't really kind of show up. But I think it's a new group now. We've learned a lot. We've kind of learned a lot of lessons throughout, and we're really excited about the opportunity that we have in front of us. So look, we're really, really excited to get them down at the StoneX, and we're sure they'll be ready to match their performance, and hopefully we can raise our levels again.
Well, indeed. Well, we're looking forward to it. And as I say, the performance against Lyon, particularly the second part of the second half, where everything suddenly switched on very, very much so. It did seem that there was a step up and a progression through the gears. Let's hope we can continue that on the weekend and see a really good performance of StoneX. So, Tom, thank you for joining us on the Fezcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And it's been an absolute pleasure watching you play this season. We wish you all the best for the rest of the season. And as we always say, give our best to all the lads as well when you next speak to them.
Will do. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom. All the best.
Hi, this is Petrus Duplessis, and you are listening to the Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back. And thank you, I say, to Wally and Tom for putting Tom up to be spoken to by us in the aftermath of what is a busy news week. And I understand how much work Ollie's doing at the moment. For him to take time out to give us Tom Parton and for Tom to stand up there. And but I mean, very interesting. Obviously, we're going to discuss and preview the Exeter Chiefs game. It's going to be interesting with the amount of players out there. But before we discuss the Lyon game, obviously, we've got to talk Owen Farrell. He's off to Racing, it seems. So, and it's all been announced. Hardly surprising, Matt, given, every now and then, well, if you throw enough muck at a wall, eventually it will stick. And also, fairly certain, given, the time Owen's had of it over here. And I do think we've mentioned it on previous Fezcasts. There's an awful lot of people in England need to have a good, long, hard look at themselves in relation to Owen Farrell, that, your best player, your captain, your England captain, I think Will Carlin said it in an interview recently. He said, playing for England and captaining England should be the pinnacle of your sport if you are English. And to, step away from that tells you that there's something wrong. And it's not the player's fault there, Matt.
No. I mean, what we should say right now is it's 7:15 on Monday night. Racing 92 have announced it. the Champions Cup have announced it. I think Premiership Rugby have announced it. BBC have. Saracens haven't said anything yet. So we could be hurriedly re-editing this when Saracens come out and say, no, it's all a load of old tosh and he's signed a 4-year deal with us. But it's, we've struggled over the course of this season to record some of the reviews of matches because we have been very sensitive to how Owen's been dealt with in the media over the last God knows how long, and the fact that he's said he was going to take time out from England because of various issues and needing time with his family, and clearly, it's affected him mentally. But at the same time, we've got to sit here and talk about performances and things, and he's not been playing very well in quite long stretches of matches. He had lots of flashes of the Owen Farrell that we know, but we've been saying since October, November that there's he's really not himself. The amount of times he was charged down against Lyon, I lost count, twice in the space of 5 seconds was something. But look, whatever comes out of what's been announced now, what you hope is it means that we can all move on a bit. We know exactly what's happening. Owen knows exactly what's happening. I mean, he's probably known for a little while, but hopefully he can just try and get out on a high, really. The performances over the last few weeks, I've been really critical of, and I've got no shame in that. I'll tell him to his face he's been crap. But we kind of know why. So...
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it, Matt? I mean, and the other thing is, and I know perhaps that there will be a section of the fan base who, and I think we all have that 10%, 20% feeling that, we've stuck up for Owen for years and years and years. When he's been getting abuse from other fans, we've gone in on his back, and you would think that over the years that Owen's appreciated that loyalty that we've shown him, and he's given us that loyalty. And, I'm not turning around here and saying, he's not being a mercenary. I mean, I'm a West Ham footballer, and the only thing that would stop me giving Declan Rice a slap at the moment if he walks in the room is if he walks in with Frank Lampard or Paul Ince. That's the sort of grudges I hold against players. But Owen's been with the club since man and boy. He's been captain. He's been inspirational. He's been the best player there. He's been everything you'd want from him. And if the loyalty that we've shown him, and the love that we've shown him, and the respect that we've shown him, isn't enough to keep him at the club, and this, as I say, Duncan, there's something desperately wrong that when you've got a player who, let's be honest about it, even though Matt has quite rightly been critical of some of his performances, there'll be players, people begging him still to stay now, Duncan.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I'd like to say, but just concentrate on a few. I think it probably hinged around losing the love of being the England captain that made him then think about what he's going to do with the rest of his career. I think is he 32?
Yeah.
Or something like that. Well, in many ways, last season was sort of like the end of a chapter for, I imagine, him and a lot of players, given what we went through. We went through all those glory years, then we went through the whole relegation episode, then we came back, we didn't win the first final, we lost it against Leicester, and then they did such an amazing job last season, and we got our fairy tale ending, if you like. And I think in a way for Owen, it was an ending, and this season's been a little bit like after the Lord Mayor's show. So now, having taken that decision after the World Cup, having been booed by England fans, having the likes of idiots like Stuart Barnes on your back, the rest of it, saying, what shall I do with this remaining 2 years? When in a way, I've come to such a significant end of chapter with Saracens. So he goes to France, which is, he will have seen in Bordeaux, just the best league in the world on the best stage, big, vibrant, etc., to a club that's managed by a family friend who's probably sold him the idea of the dream, come here and be a hero by fulfilling our dream of winning the European Cup. So it's a great challenge. It's a great change. It's a different platform to play on. When he's not going to play international rugby, he's going to a stage which is almost as good. It just makes sense for him. If he then learns a load as that coach on the pitch comes back and we get the benefits of it, then all the better.
Absolutely. And of course, the other side of it is monetary as well. That Owen Farrell, albeit he's a marquee player, suddenly does free up one a marquee place, which, given his form at present, you are not going to begrudge that going to Maro Itoje, who I fully expect. I mean, for Jamie George becoming England captain, we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this part. But for all Jamie George becoming England captain, you can see Maro Itoje, he's already said this week that he's very, very close to signing that deal. And I'm sure if Owen is off to Racing and it is all confirmed by the club, that deal will be signed pretty damn quick. And that Maro could be like Owen was when Brad Barrett retired. He's going to step into that iconic Saracens captain role quite easily. And I think on his performances this season so far, and again against Lyon, I think he's fully deserving of that, Matt.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the only thing that you say about Maro, where you think, well, is he a captain, is he's actually quite quiet and quite understated, which isn't always what you see in a captain. Sometimes he's better off doing his job. He'll be a very different type of captain to Owen Farrell if he is the captain. But yeah, he's played for that contract.
Funny with Maro, he changed. Do you remember? He used to be captain with the A team when the Storm or whatever they were called, and he used to boss senior players around when he first came on the scene. But he doesn't seem to do that so much anymore. So I think he's capable of being captain.
Absolutely.
The other implication of what you're saying, I totally agree with you that he deserves it. Is that we're not signing a Finn Russell type superstar number 10?
No, I mean, this is something we've discussed in previous weeks, isn't it? The fact that actually now you're going to free up, and the one place that we perhaps haven't had great cover is at fly half. So potentially, there's a couple of fly halves that could come in. Manu Vunipola again, is he going to get a bit more game time, whatever? Who knows? What we do know is it's not Paddy Jackson, thank heavens, which, the club were very, where we do sometimes say that the club is quite slow in quashing rumours or whatever. That one, they were very, very quick to contact the various people to say, get it out there. We are not signing Paddy Jackson, because I think that would have been an absolute disaster for them. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about various replacements that could come in. I've mentioned Adam Hastings at Gloucester as his contract's up, Bailey at Bath, number of different names being around there. So that'd be quite interesting. And hopefully, as I say, that financial side of it. Plus, with a couple of other senior players maybe moving on, although, Jamie George has signed a new contract, but there's, other areas might go. There might free up an awful lot of money that we could go in and get those players who have got experience but are not the finished article, who would benefit from being part of our organisation, like we've done with Tom Parton, like we've done with Ollie Hartley, like we've done with Juan Martin Gonzalez, whatever. And I mean, that's another player you want a signature down very, very quickly, isn't it?
We do. I think he's at risk.
Good at a club, but would really flourish with lots of good players around them.
I think he would be one of the best news to say we've re-signed him. I think he's really at risk. He's come, because of the timing when London Irish went bust, he will have come in like all those Irish players did on a very low contract. He's only been with us, a matter of months, really. He is English, and that TNT Sports interview is clearly not good. So that perhaps hinders bonding with the team. He will have seen
the Argentinian side looking like coming back into the Southern Hemisphere rugby, aren't they? They're going to relaunch the professional outfit down in Argentina. So
but every club in France and England has seen him first in the World Cup and then playing for us, so they'll all be after him. And again, he will have seen the atmosphere in Bordeaux. He might be thinking, "Whoa, wow, what a place to play." He's not. He's just not imbued Saracens through and through like many other players, is he?
No. But there we go. Look, we do need to discuss the game. And again, we'll probably start with Owen Farrell because, Lyon game, first half, it looks a bit dodgy. Dan Vickers interviewed on the sideline, made a big amount about the wins at playing level, which Matt sat in his posh seats or wherever he sits. Wasn't so certain was the situation. On the television, it definitely looked like attacking the ends that Saracens were first half. It was a battle to get up the fields from the boot. Hence why they kept the ball in hand a lot more. And, when you keep the ball in hand, you give more opportunities for mistakes to be made. It doesn't matter how good you are. The more times you pass the ball, the more times you hit contact, the more times there is potential for spillages, knock-ons, whatever. So actually, when Dan Vickers turned around and said, you know what, we're still in this game and we're quite happy with that at half-time, I think, was quite right. And then second half, we came out and, started on fire, and then Owen had his double charge down. But then after that, I thought Owen fired an exceptionally good game because he relaxed. He had a laugh about it. And sometimes the last thing you want to see, Duncan, is a player laughing after he's just been charged down and a try and see from it. But two things happened after that. Number one, Joel Capocco decided to start throwing his weight around, which he'd done all game, and I will mention him again in a minute. But and then Owen just went, do you know what? It's one of them, innit? And he relaxed into it, and suddenly everything started to click in that last 30 minutes of the second half, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, on the wind, I was actually standing rather than in the posh seat. I can't get into the posh seats, mate. I haven't got the money for that. But normally I'm sheltered in the south stand, but we decided to stand up for a bit, and it was pretty gusty, and I think it was pretty gusty both ways, really. It was certainly crossfield. Yeah, it was probably a bit more in our faces in that first half. But I don't think it really was any better for us in the second. So I'm not really sure I'm buying that one too much, but the first half was terrible. I'm sorry, I can't really say anything else. It was dreadful. I've got to do it. I'm sorry. First half, I actually thought Owen Farrell looked like someone who signed for another club. It's not that he just wasn't playing very well. It just didn't look particularly interested. A couple of passes going astray, and he just sort of turned his back on them. But yeah, there was something in the second half, once he'd been charged down twice, where, maybe he's said, sod it, I'll just carry on playing. I mean, with the boot, I think Alex Goode and Elliot Daly still had a much better meta game than Owen in open play. But yeah, you're exactly right with, I think, our man of the match is Joel Capocco, because I think he was entirely responsible for galvanising our team in that second half, really.
It's funny how he calls that punch up. It's funny how something like that makes a change. I mean, I was listening to the commentary, obviously, during the game, and Chris Ashton, who must have been standing on the pitch or nearby, was interested because he was saying, Saracens are playing too much. Why are they playing like this? Is it perhaps because of the wind? Are they trying to tire them out? But I was thinking about last season, and how many times did we sort of seem to be getting nowhere in the first half, and in some cases, going massively behind, and then including in the final against Sale, it looked like we were running into a brick wall all the time, and then it came good in the second half. And when Dan Vickers came on, as you said, I was thinking, because he basically said, "Oh no, we're all right. We just need to stick in. We need to just stick in with this game." And then we'll turn it round in the second half. We've been
a second half team for years. It's nothing new. Yeah. We're always better in the second half, and we're always better in the second half when we're kicking towards the north stand to start with and playing towards the south. Hang on, that's the wrong way around. Got my compass wrong. Kicking towards
play against the north in the first, isn't it?
Basically, I sit in the stand where you don't see any rugby because it's always up the other end because we're getting bullied in the first half.
Well, but just on Owen, if I may, if my theory is right and his head is sort of after the Lord Mayor's show, remember last season he got into a place where he was so good and all of his rugby is right on the edge. whether it's the little kicks through, whether it's the kicks from hand, whether it's the really fast flat passes. And he only has to go off a bit to become really dangerous. And what he's been doing this season is basically playing really well in stages, but making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think some of it just seems to have a tiny little bit of doubt where everything's just taking that split second longer for him to act upon, which is why he's getting charged down, which is why passes are going behind players. And yeah, there's so much to it. But
although in his defence, what you've got to say as well is you've got to point out the fact that it's a 15-man game.
Yep.
And in previous seasons, Owen Farrell has been behind a pack, sat in a armchair with a glass of cognac and a cigar on the go, and he's had an armchair ride. This season, for a number of reasons, much of to do with not having a fantastic front row, we've got some serious problems there. It's been a little bit more of a grind, and he hasn't had that easy ride, And I think if you're behind a great pack, any player can look good. You see when Harlequins are going forward, Marcus Smith looks amazing. When Harlequins are going backwards in the pack, he's even worse than what Owen is because he hasn't got that same grit and determination, shall we say. Likewise, Finn Russell, fantastic going forward. You put their Bath pack going backwards or Scotland pack going backwards, Finn Russell will suffer. That's the same for any fly half in the world. So, yeah, you've got to take that into account, that it's not entirely his fault.
You mentioned Elliot Daly, and I think he did have a great game. His best game as centre for us so far, I think. But what I really miss is him at fullback. I think when he's at fullback and his running lines, last season he was sort of linking up with Owen and Max Malins. The way that Roti played, I think he could create another great partnership there. I just in the last half of the season, when it begins again in 4 years' time, I would love to see him, at fullback. And that's not anything against Alex Goode, of course, brilliant. But Daly at fullback with the full pitch to create those running lines is something that we miss, I think.
Well, of course, potentially you could see Alex Goode playing at 10, can you? See what happens after this break, after the exit of the game, the break, where's Owen's head at? Is this you don't know. That's something that's going to wash out. The player you mentioned there, Duncan, who I really want to pump, and I pumped him last week as well, is Rotimi Shegan, who I think, I'm going to make a bold claim here now, although he's not one of the biggest players, but if you got a full season out of Rotimi Shegan, injury-free, he's England quality. He could play for England. He's still young enough, but I just think his physicality, he might only be 5'2" in stocking feet or however much he is, but, he plays like a player 6 inches taller than him and 2 stone heavier. Every week he plays, Matt.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, puts himself about a bit, doesn't he? And yeah, it's just a shame he's 3 inches shorter than your average winger, otherwise he might have scored a couple of tries at the weekend. Yeah, like I say, he's someone that needs a good run of games. The issue he's had is he has had some injuries, and he's actually in his late 20s now, but seems like he's a young player because he just hasn't quite managed to kick into the team too much. But yeah, we're obviously going to see a lot more of him, and there's players more than just Rotimi Shegan that we've obviously missed quite a bit over the last few seasons because of a number of injuries, and that is something that we've got to take a careful look at. Some of it is bad luck, but yeah, there's the likes of Ralph Adams-Hale, who we were looking at as being Mako Vunipola's replacement by now. He's barely played a game of rugby in the last 3 years. And yeah, Rotimi's another one that every season he does seem to have a 6-week injury. But yeah, if you can get a proper run, he's definitely.
Yeah, let's just pray he stays fit. He's quite clearly got the wheels. He's one of these players that seems to need 3 players to bring him down. He finishes really well. The one thing under the kick chase, he usually knocks on. So that's the one area of his game that maybe that's caused by the lack of inches. I don't know, but he can probably solve that one.
the other player I really wanted to mention as well, who came on, I mean, the old boy Mulipola, Loosehead, had a great game, but Sam Crean came on as well, and really did show good strength, good determination, looked really good in the loose. We know he's always been good in the loose, but his scrummaging has really stepped up a lot as well this season.
It's funny, isn't it, to see a player with the physique of a darts player coming on and being so mobile, but he really does get around. Toby Knight as well, I thought, did a good job when he came on.
Indeed, and I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? To bring it back before we talk Exeter Chiefs, I think there is a lot of good young players coming through, and like we said about Exeter Chiefs at the start of this season, where we said, young players, they're going to struggle. You could look at players leaving, players getting old, a lot more young players coming through for next season. And, people could say, well, it could be a transitional year for Saracens, they could struggle. But I'm also seeing a lot of these players being blooded and actually not letting themselves down. Ollie Hartley, another one who came on and really did do well in a very, very, against a very strong Lyon team.
Yeah, I think the only thing we're potentially a little bit concerned about is with our development. We seem to be developing in little bottlenecks. We've got second rows and back rows coming out of our ears in the academy, less so in the backs. There are sort of gaps in that academy side, and in the front row as well. Or yes, hooker we seem to be doing pretty damn well, but props we don't seem to have an awful lot coming through our academy in recent times. Although there are a few in there at the moment, yet to really kick on with Saracens. So yeah, I think we're wrapping it all up with Farrell leaving and things. We talk about transitional seasons and things, and we've been speaking pretty much for as long as the Fezcast has existed about when this transition happens with our older players. I think today, recording, is where we're drawing that line. The departure of Owen Farrell is a new chapter for the club, and do you know what? You might get over it eventually, and it'll be quite exciting.
Indeed. Look, Owen's still our player, and we assume that this weekend he will be on the pitch, captaining the side against Exeter Chiefs. And this is a huge, huge game coming up, isn't it? I mean, we're losing some superstars, the likes of Elliot Daly, Maro Itoje, Jamie George, Theo Dan, which does leave us slightly under strength at hooker. Exeter Chiefs losing less players, but an important player in Henry Slade won't be there, So, but we really need to win this game, don't we, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there was a part of me at the weekend that thought maybe we could do with a little loss to Lyon and playing in the Challenge Cup. But what we did need out of it really was a victory and a performance like that last half an hour against Lyon, showing what we can do, and then to continue that into Exeter and give us a bit of momentum into the back end of the season. So yes, very, very important game for us. The league is so tight, it could put us well inside the top four comfortably, or it could leave us floundering. So yeah, every game's a must win till the end of the season.
Well, I think what is going to be apparent is that as much as we talk about transition and much as we talk about young players coming through, there are four key players, senior players, who really need to step up and lead that team on the weekend. And that will be Billy Vunipola, who will be playing 8, Ivan Van Zyl at 9, Owen Farrell at 10, and Alex Goode at 15, because those guys are playing without a shadow of a doubt. And we really need them to set the tone, to set the tempo, and to set the attitude right from the very off, Duncan.
No, we do. And it's going to be interesting to see who's coming in, which of the young players is coming in. Ollie Hartley, you'd expect to be there. No Ben Earls. So, is Toby Knight going to get a start again? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we need to finish up, but the last thing we need to talk about is obviously the Six Nations is coming up. First off, I'm doing my prediction game again, and I'll ask Matt to tweet it out on the Fezcast, and I'll put it out there. So if anybody wants to join in, it has been on the Saracens fans forum, etc., etc. But yeah, Jamie George, England captain, well deserved.
Yeah, well, there's nothing to say against that. Just a shame.
I was hoping he was going to be a bit more ebullient about it and everything. But yeah, I mean, as I seen a bit of grief out there saying, he's too old, is he the first choice, whatever. Oh, come on. Jamie George, without a shadow of a doubt, he deserves it. We always said he was the best captain England and Saracens had never had. And now he's got the opportunity to do it, Matt.
He has indeed, yeah. And he'll do it in his own way as well, which is what we like. He's a good entertainer as well, isn't he? So, yeah.
I was just about to make that point. He deserves it both as a player and because he's great with the media.
Indeed.
There was a number of journalists have said hooray that he's England captain because he's so newsworthy. He always gives a good quote, always raises a chuckle.
Right, indeed. Look, we're running out of time, so I think we'll say, look, thank you everybody for listening in. Thank you to Tom for joining us to do that interview. And we'll sign off and say we'll see you next week on the Fezcast. And thanks, Matt. Thanks, Duncan.
Cheers.
This is the Fezcast.